professionals sitting in an office writing a site. We wanted the site to be composed of the experiences and the contributions of members who are not paid full-timers, who don't sit in an office and write, and that would actually help us to build a site that actually reflected the real lives of people, and in doing so will connect with people in a way, you know, in a new way. And part of our the inspiration for this is from two sources, really, in a way. One was the capacity to do that had suddenly become available. You know, it's actually a relatively new thing to be able to add content online yourselves. You know, before the sort of early 2000s, really, the whole process of making a website, of adding content to a website, of producing a regular online publication was incredibly technical task. The sort of access to which was restricted to technical professionals, more or less. And then you've got the advent of Web 2.0, which effectively, you know, you could describe as the read-write web. You know, that ordinary people were suddenly enabled to upload content and add content online using simple. And blogs were really the first beginnings of that, where what made blogging so successful was the fact that people could use their web browser, they could log into a blogging site like Blogger, they could paste in a Word document or type live and so on, they could print publish, and they'd got a website with their own thoughts and their own feelings and so on and so forth on a daily basis, produced live. So the technical basis was there to do that. That then gradually extended to other forms of communication like video. You know, this is largely where I came in, which is in 2005, 2006 with YouTube. So again, it's only 6 years old. You know, the ability to shoot video, to upload video, and to broadcast video to a massive audience. I think there's an anthropologist in the States that basically studied this, and I can't remember the exact number of hours, but he worked out there's 3 channels broadcasting 24 hours, 7 days a week in the United States from the Second World War, just after the Second World War, up until 2006, and how many millions of hours that would be. YouTube actually exceeded that in a month, you know, in terms of the amount of content. And the majority of that content, about 80% of that content, was user-generated content, user-originated. It wasn't copied off the television and so on. So there's a technical basis for people to do this, for many individuals to be able to upload and add content to online entities. The second source of inspiration, if you like, actually, funnily enough, is very old. It's from a long time ago, a lot of it. Gramsci, Lenin, Trotsky, and more recently Tony Cliff writing in the 70s. And I'm going to read a quote that Tony Cliff was a Palestinian Jewish socialist that left Palestine to come and work in this country and set up the Socialist Workers' Party. And he wrote about, he quoted Trotsky in making an argument, and Trotsky wrote about this, was writing about an American paper called The Appeal, the Socialist Appeal, and Trotsky says, as it is, the paper is divided amongst various writers, each of whom is very good, but collectively they do not permit workers to penetrate to the pages of The Appeal. Each of them speaks for the workers, and speaks very well, but nobody will hear the workers. In spite of its literary brilliance, to a certain degree, the paper becomes a victim of journalistic routine. You do not hear at all how the workers live, fight, clash with the police, or drink whiskey. It's very dangerous for the paper as a revolutionary instrument of the party. The task is not to make a paper through the joint forces of a skilled editorial board, but to encourage the workers to speak for themselves. A radical and courageous change is necessary as a condition of success.
right? So that's, you know, this is bloody well. That's Trotsky speaking. I don't know have the exact date of the time that he wrote that on my quote there, but this is the next part of the story is where Gramsci comes in, and Gramsci said, I won't read the quote because I haven't got time, but Gramsci basically argued that there isn't such a thing as spontaneity, right? Every struggle that's organised, every struggle that happens, every strike, every demonstration, every protest is a conscious act of resistance, right? There are people who are involved in organising that resistance, who are central to it, who go and convince people to take part, yeah? And therefore there is conscious action involved in everything, and if it may be termed spontaneous, but that doesn't mean there is not conscious action involved. What spontaneity really means is that the people involved in it have left no historical record of it. They haven't written it down, right? They haven't, and actually the act of writing it down is the key part of consciousness, right? It means that what people are doing is they are connecting what they are trying to let other people know about their act of resistance. They're trying to connect what they are doing with other people who are around at the same time, and at a broader level they're connecting what they're doing in a historical context. They're placing it as part of an ongoing history of struggle and resistance of which they are part, and therefore the process of creating and writing, of producing, of putting stuff online for us is not something it's not a casual thing. It's something by which we create consciousness. We become conscious of the world, and where we begin to understand and develop a picture, that single picture of resistance to the system. And that's what we want on the pages of Counterfire. We haven't really got there yet. You know, we've got little sniffs of it on the site, but we haven't really got that, and that's what today is really about. Right, and I think that, you know, look at the attendance today and look at the enthusiasm for citizen journalism, for that process of doing that, of articulating the struggle and putting it online is there. And what we want to come out from today really is an extension and an expansion of the number of people that write for the site and that produce illustrations and photographs and videos for the site, and that is impossible without increasing the number of people who are engaged in the subbing process, that sub-edit stuff, and fundamentally it requires people to add the content on the site. In other words, there's finally what I would say, there's a fusion of two things going on here. That in order for that broadness, and in order to get that broadness onto the site, you do need an element of centralisation. You do need a bunch of people sitting down, not necessarily in an office, but sitting down at home and conducting a set of technical, creative tasks of editing the content and uploading it to the site. And without that combination of the two things, the broad brush, the crowdsourcing, getting lots of people to contribute their creativity to the site, and a group of people who are dedicated to dedicate their time week in, week out to making that stuff available on the site, then the site won't happen. And so, you know, I'm ending it with an appeal really, and I don't want people to come back on this and talk about this, but really it's an appeal to get involved with this process, with not just with Counterfire actually. I mean, today is about Counterfire, but if you look at the Stop the War site, this is how the Stop the War site, you know, works. You know, it's the same computer system, same system that is used on Counterfire is used on Stop the War. Counterfire actually grew out of Stop the War in terms of its approach, and in terms of technology and so on. That's what we mean, it comes from the movement. And it's true of the Coalition of Resistance. The site uses, it's very similar, it's WordPress, whereas Stop the War and Counterfire use a system called Joomla, but the same processes are at work across the movement, and so really today is about developing that and trying to get more people involved in doing that for Counterfire, but also for the rest of the movement.
Thanks ever so much, AD. I'm now going to hand over to discussion, so if people have got questions or contributions they want to make, please just indicate to me and I'll call you sort of in turn. a day on technology put on by the organisation itself. And the very reason that we use a website is because we want to connect with the kind of people that are using the internet to look for answers, to look for ideas, to express their own ideas. We want to connect with young people who want to change the world. We want to connect with the social movements and people that have been using the internet. And everything you've learnt here today, it hasn't just been about acquiring new skills in a neutral environment. And I know a lot of people have attacked today that idea of a neutral environment. You know, when John Rees this morning you know, was talking about how to use techniques writing for an organisation like this. I mean, I know somebody who works for, or did work for, a tabloid newspaper, and he said that in the newsroom they had this term for people that believed all the rubbish that they wrote, and they called them the believers, and that they were like a really small group of people, and everybody else knew what they were writing was rubbish but went ahead and did it anyway. And so what you've learnt today is, yes, the techniques for writing for a mass audience, but not the kind of the other techniques that they use. We haven't been, you know, otherwise John Rees would have got up here and been like, find scapegoats, blame them. What we've been doing, we've been talking about taking the good techniques about how to write for a mass audience, but also how to use those techniques to empower other people to do it. And that's another point about this organisation. It's a democratic organisation, and that's why we've hosted this today, is to pass on the skills. It's not just to keep it in the hands of a few. I mean, partly just because AD would go to an early grave with exhaustion, but it's not just because of that. We want to teach people, we want to pass on those skills. That's the point. We've had discussions here today, not just people sort of preaching at others from the top. And you know, next time we hold one of these, we want to have, you know, some of the new people here coming up and explaining how they're doing things and really shaping the organisation. So I really you know, would say that these principles sort of shape our journalism and shape the way that we do absolutely everything. And that is, you know, and if you're looking for an organisation that wants to change the world, I think you've got to look at its politics and how effective it is at conveying them. And for me, Counterfire is the most effective at doing both of those. It's tapping into new technologies, and I think its politics are absolutely brilliant, and they are all about changing the world, overthrowing the system. And if that's what you want to do, I'd urge you, there's going to be membership forms going around now. I'd urge you to fill them out and keep in touch with us. Another good way of doing that, by the way, is we're going to be having 2 practical training sessions coming up in the next 2 weeks. One is going to be on designing and the other on uploading stuff to the site. So we're going to email people here the details of those. So please, if you haven't done so already, fill out the form that's the sort of sign-up form that's going around, or even better, fill out a Counterfire membership form and join us. So now I'm going to hand back to AD, who's going to sum up the session.
Okay. Well, I think it's been a great day today, and I think it sort of bears out a lot of what we were saying about the real change that's taken place in many ways that has been facilitated by the Read Write Web, and that we're able to hold an event like this and get engaged in this way. But at the same time, it'd be wrong to obviously mysticize, you know, the internet. It's not some mythical, it's not some great power that changes the world. I mean, somebody posted on I posted the notification for this event on my Facebook page, and somebody posted a comment that said, yeah, but websites don't don't build an organisation, which is absolutely formally correct. But then newspapers don't build an organisation, people build organisations. You know, that's the key thing. It's the role that these technologies play in helping people to do that job that's the important thing to keep in mind. And that's how we should approach the girl next door type of scenario that you're talking about. And that, you know, that if you think about it, she's not connected to the web, but you're connected to the web and you're connected to her, and that means that there is a connection between her and what goes on the site. You know, if you think about the processes that have been involved in making the web accessible to many more people, those same processes have actually made it a lot easier to produce leaflets. You know, if you think about the way that you had to produce a leaflet 15 or 20 years ago, you know, I mean, I was in the Socialist Workers' Party for a long time, and our leaflets used to come by the train. You know, we didn't produce them ourselves. They got printed, they got delivered to us via train from a print shop. They were all centrally produced. That doesn't happen now. You download the thing and you print it off locally. So that, actually, that ability to give somebody something on paper has been incredibly expanded by the same processes that are engaged with the web. You know, the same processes that have made the web cheaper have made the capacity to make online video possible, and TV and so on. So it has actually changed some of the older forms that we're more familiar with. And you know, and if you think about it, you know, obviously TV is the main dominant media form in the country, in the world, really. Still, you know, most people get their news and information off the telly, you know, more than they get it off newsprint and so on and so forth. Now, we need to think in those terms, but actually we are more likely to get on TV, to be interviewed, and to be asked our opinion by BBC journalists and so on, because we have a website that is read by lots of people and that is a player. It is a fact. You know, I started this with, when me and Chris did this site called Military Families Against the War. This is where I came into web design. And actually what you noticed was, although not many, you know, it was about 300 or 400 people a day would visit the site. Actually, amongst those 300 or 400 people were journalists, right? And those journalists would then use the site as a resource, and they'd come, and that meant that we suddenly had access to their platform, which gave us access to many, many hundreds of thousands of people. So there's an interrelationship between these things. On copyright, I think it's really important for us to understand what's gone on with copyright, right? Because, right, copyright, the rules and the laws about copyright were initially about regulating the behaviour of professionals, people that could print charts, maps, diagrams and so on. What's happened with the read-write web and digital reproduction is you have this thing called infinite perfect reproducibility. You know, you can see it in music. You can sample a piece of music digitally and produce a perfect copy of it as part of a new production. And what that has meant is that the law has moved from regulating and intervening in the behaviour and activities of professionals into intervening in the lives of amateurs, everybody that uses a computer, right? And that means it's a massive extension of the powers of the state into our lives, and we can't be, you know, sit on the sidelines with that. We are clearly we clearly have to take a position against single parents being sent to jail because they've downloaded music illegally, you know. In Google on the one hand and Hollywood on the other, there is a third position in this, and that's the one that we've got to stress in this argument. I just want to talk about what Richard said, because I think, although, you know, I think you're a bit harsh on yourself, Richard, because if you think about it, you've sent me text messages which I've then turned into articles, short articles, and put on the site. So if you can use an SMS, you can publish to Counterfire. You know, so you need, that's the important thing to see, and that's important. Those SMS messages that then go onto the site, they then can be turned into leaflets. They can go into another format which can be used on a picket line or used on a demonstration and so on. So there isn't a brick wall between these things. If you can send an SMS message, you can contribute to Counterfire. And I think really what I want to end on is where I started, really, is that actually all of these things lead to organisation. There's the reason why Lenin said that a paper is incredibly important is because it raises the question of organisation. It raises the question of organisation, and I think what we've seen today is what comes out of everything that we've been doing is that you need to have some sort of organisation. If you want to connect with people that aren't online, you need to organise, right? If the alternative, right, to them watching a video online is for the person that's got the computer to download the video, to put it onto a DVD, and then to go into the community and show it on a projector like this, right? But that requires organisation. In order to translate the capacity of what's out there technologically to become an organising tool, you need organisation, and that's why I want to underline what Kate said. You know, I would appeal for people to join us and get involved in the site and in what we're doing, because that's the only way really that we can make a difference and translate that activity of the electronic media and so on into real people on the streets challenging the system, which is the only way we're ever going to change anything.
Thanks, Adi. Just before we go, I've got an announcement from Chris about an upcoming Counterfire event. Yeah, that.
Okay, the same one then.
Go on, you.
From Claire.
Okay, I feel like I've spoken a lot already though. Okay, alright, well, if you haven't seen these already, we have Festival of Dangerous Ideas coming up on March the 17th, which actually one of the sessions at it is going to be called The Internet Serving the